You guys, the 2020 experience is here, and I could not be more excited to share this with you. It is a culmination of the many years I have spent participating in high-level masterminds and the many years of leading masterminds. Quite frankly, it's what I desperately want myself, and I think is needed and is completely missing. I don't know anyone else doing this, and so I put it together just for you. It is for 32 ambitious women who are ready to make 2020 their year. It involves a larger mastermind of 32. It involves a smaller mastermind of 8. It involves accelerators to really dig deep and get momentum when you need it most. It involves one-on-one expert coaching and services. It involves 3 in-person meetings, 2 of which are at Miraval, which is a luxury retreat, which really, in and of itself, transforms every part of you because it allows you to tap into the wellness and the mindset and the peace that is needed in order to truly go after your dreams. This entire year is intended to help you go bigger than you've ever gone before, to really get outside of your comfort zone and to leave behind those old patterns, those old excuses that keep showing up over and over again, and they're holding you back and keeping you from having the life that you really want. So this program is not for the faint of heart. It is only for those who are 100% committed and ready to go all in, ready to leave their excuses at the door and to really show up in a way that they've never shown up before for themselves, for their families, for their careers, for a group of women that perhaps they've not experienced that before. A tribe of women who are really at that high level, supporting you, pushing you, and challenging you, and calling you on your stuff so that you can be the best version of yourself. It is going to be a year of intense hustle and intense flow, and it is going to change lives. And the ripple effect is going to go far beyond just this group of 32 women. But it is here. It is ready for you. If you're looking for a breakout year in 2020, you can apply at 2020mastermindexperience.com. Welcome to Hustle and Flow with Heather Hubbard, episode 135. Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard, and I was a litigator, partner, and practice group leader at an AmLaw 200 firm. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you embrace your ambition without selling your soul? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. Welcome back. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and thank you so much for joining me. I have so much good stuff to share with you today. As you know, my focus for next year really is the 2020 experience, which is limited to 32 ambitious women going after really big things. And a lot of you may not fit in that category, and there is nothing wrong with that. But many of you are like, when am I going to get access to your other masterminds, and how is this going to work? So here's the deal. For 2020, I really am looking to others, people that I really trust, to help support you. Because one thing that I know, and if you've listened to the podcast for very long, you have heard me say it's super important to focus. And it's super important to niche. And even though you want to say yes to every opportunity, it's really important during certain growth periods to prune and say no, even if you really, really want to do it. So I really, really want to work with all of you in different training programs and masterminds, but I know that 2020 is not the year for that. Now, there will still be other opportunities, and that will be coming out, but not at that mid-tier mastermind level. So I have really looked to those who I already believe in and again, trust. I already refer people to them. So here's the deal. If you are a solo or small firm attorney, we've got a really great opportunity for you to work with Ali Lozano. And she has been on the podcast before. She was on episode 72, Be the CEO of Your Law Firm. And she's going to be helping you guys streamline and systematize your law firms so that you can make more money with less effort and have some time off, so that you're not doing all the things all the time. And so she has an amazing program. There are going to be special bonuses where you'll still get a little bit of me. So anyway, you're going to be hearing more of that if you are on the newsletter list. If you're not, go sign up at heatherjoyhubbard.com. We'll put all these links, by the way, in the show notes. So just go to your podcast app and the links will be right there in the notes. And Ali is going to do a webinar for us. We're kind of co-hosting it, but Ali's going to be doing a special webinar on Friday, October 18th at 11 a.m. Central. So if you are a solo or a small firm, definitely sign up for that. The link is alilozano.com/Heather. But again, you can get all of this in the show notes. All right. So if you are in a medium-sized firm or you are in a large firm, maybe you're even in-house or doing something else, I have today's guests, Amy Gardner and Keith Sbiral, to support you. Amy was a guest back on episode 42 related to performance reviews. It was one of our most listened to podcasts. So you definitely enjoyed it and liked it. She is amazing. And if you've ever taken my course, Legal Career Clarity, you're familiar with them because they did bonus videos for you guys. And anytime anyone has some career coaching needs that go beyond the do-it-yourself online course that I have, I always send you guys to Amy and Keith because I really do think they're amazing at what they do. They are my go-to referral source for that. So for me, Ali is all things solo small firm, and Keith and Amy really are great at helping people make those transitions, as well as associates transition into partner and really prepare and shine, as well as junior partners trying to make that shift once you become partner and excel there. So they too have an opportunity for you. And we'll talk about that more on the podcast, but that's why I have them on today. I wanted to introduce you to them, and we're not just going to be pitching that the whole time on this episode. So if you're thinking, I'm not really interested in any of that, Heather, don't worry, stay with us because Amy and Keith, their backgrounds are amazing. I'm going to actually let them introduce themselves. And they work with so many different kinds of people, executives, lawyers, and they really are top of their game. So they're going to be sharing with you some tips today related to when you get stuck and you're not really sure what your career options are, or when you're really trying to break through to that next level and you want to make sure that you are prepared. So stay tuned because you're going to get a lot of great nuggets from today's episode. All right, let's get to the interview. Amy, welcome back. And Keith, welcome to the Hustle and Flow podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're excited to be with you.
So, Amy, you are the first guest to ever be on here twice. I mean, I've had some do like second bonuses, but you're the first one to come on twice. And you guys are definitely the first, like we're doing this like threesome podcast. I feel completely in over my head. So so many firsts today.
I feel very special.
We can gang up on you and try not to step on each other's.
Yeah, I feel like I I should be getting a burrito or something.
I know, right?
My second podcast. And I'm really glad to get to be back to talk with you again. And this is the first time we've ever done a podcast interview together as well. So
oh, wow.
Who knows what's going to happen.
This is going to be fun then. So Amy, you've already been on before, but so I would love for you, if you guys would briefly give an intro, just kind of as to your background, and I'll let you two choose who's going first because you're in a room together. I can't see you.
I'll just jump in and go first because Amy's already done this. So it seems only fair that I would just go first. Well, as you know, I spent 20 years in municipal government, and that was culminated with being a city manager in a western suburb for Illinois in Chicago. And my background, my master's degree is in urban and regional planning. But throughout that career, I had extensive experience in managing folks, leading folks, and there's always so much time spent on, I guess, employees that need assistance and are on the trouble end of the spectrum rather than those that are really trying to create fantastic careers for themselves. So at the point when I felt like I was kind of done being a city manager, I wanted to work with folks who wanted to really work on their career trajectory. And that's why I transitioned into doing what we do now. And so we created Chromatic, our company, and we do career transition coaching, career development coaching, as well as resume work and a whole assortment of other things. And then on the side, I'm also an avid photographer. So I work with creative folks as well in trying to meet their and achieve their goals in the creative space.
Love it. And you guys travel a lot. You used to do, well, do you still do tours in Cuba?
So a long time ago, we started this boutique travel company where we put together legal trips for people, Americans, but also we have several British travelers who want to go to Cuba in these small groups. And then we do private trips. So as U.S. regulations have changed, things have gotten more complicated for Americans to go to Cuba. But particularly, it's a real passion of mine. I feel like we need more Americans and Cubans to get to know each other. So we do continue to do that as a fun hobby that's definitely a different aspect of our businesses. But yeah, we still do those under Complete Cuba.
All right. So I'm going to let you do a background as well, because I see I already started going off. Let's have you do an intro as well.
Okay. So I graduated from the University of Chicago Law School and went straight to SCAD in Chicago, where I was a litigation associate for about 6 years. Then I went to a mid-sized firm that is now part of Nixon Peabody. There I did mainly IP litigation, but also some internal investigations. I became partner there and then left my partnership at the firm to become the dean of students at the University of Chicago Law School. And while I was there, I really focused on teaching professionalism and leadership to prepare students for the realities of practice. I was frankly horrified and pretty open about that they hadn't really changed the way they were preparing students to practice over the way that they were preparing students when I was a law student. So I worked with a lot of law firms to put together trainings for students that would help them get ready for the things they needed to know that they weren't going to learn in the classroom. And after that, then I had started using coaching with students, decided I wanted to make a transition into being a full-time career development and career transition coach, working mainly with lawyers, but also knew that with the realities of that job, I didn't have the time and space to do that in the way I wanted to do it. So I left the University of Chicago after about 6 years and worked for a national legal nonprofit, and did that while I completed my coaching certification, completed my MPPA from Northwestern, and we launched Chromatic. So today I spend all of my time coaching primarily attorneys on career development, which is people who want to make partner or advance to GC, or maybe they want to be the executive director of their nonprofit. And then I coach attorneys and others on career transitions. And then another thing that Keith and I regularly do under Chromatic is trainings for legal groups and law firms, which is great because then we are back in the law firms and in the legal employers seeing what's going on and talking to the professional development folks, talking to managing partners on a regular basis. And then that way we're better able to bring all of that back to our coaching clients.
So I've got a ton of questions for you guys about career transitions and trajectories. But first, so Amy, you and I first met when I was local counsel on one of your IP litigation matters, I don't know, over a decade ago, maybe. Yeah. And we've stayed connected. And you and Keith have been in a mastermind in Nashville. And so when you guys are down here, oftentimes we go out as couples. And have dinner. And so it's always fun to interact. And I ask you these questions, but I think that the audience will want to know this as well. This is a two-parter. The first one is, so you both, right? You both had lucrative careers where you stepped away to start your own company, like both of you. And I can see that being scary for a lot of people. So I'd love to just hear, the thought process behind that and making that leap. And then number two, for those who don't know, they're married. So for you guys, like, what's that like to actually work with, your partner?
Perfect in every way, every day. I'll let Keith because I want to hear what he says.
No, I'll answer first. So the first part of the question with respect to stepping away from lucrative careers, I would classify it as insane to do that within 8 months of each other. So, when we left, we left right about 8 months apart. And it was because things started to take off and there just wasn't enough time at that point to do it right and really feel like we were launching in the way we needed to launch with our own business. So we jumped in both feet first. That made for a really intense, transition. And we've been planning it for a while, but it's real when you actually leave your job and have to figure out insurance and all of those types of things. And so that's that. I mean, as far as working together, it's funny because when Amy was talking about doing trainings for law firms, sometimes these people that we work with know that we're married and sometimes they don't. And so it's really kind of bizarre. But I think it took some learning as to how to kind of stay in our lane and know who's doing what and keep that organized and just kind of have that ability to, I guess, recognize where each of our strengths are and then recognize when we need to turn the business off. So I think particularly at the beginning, there was a tendency to have that in our head 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I think, you need to realize what spaces for what type of work. So that was as diplomatic as I can get.
That was really good.
It's not like from time to time there aren't some serious arguments about things.
Well, but I think one thing that's been really fun and neat to see is how we can benefit our clients together. So for example, recently we had a client who does not live in Chicago. He and his wife traveled to Chicago to take the two of us to dinner as a thank you, because after being a partner at his law firm for 27 years, I was his primary coach and we worked with him to find a job that is really what he wants to be doing at this stage in his career. And he's so much happier. And he brought up the fact that the way we do it is for career transition clients, the person will have a mock interview with their primary coach. And then if the client and their primary coach decides to be helpful, then they can have a second mock interview with the other person. So he was one of my clients, had a mock interview with me, and then did a mock interview with Keith. And Keith came to the mock interview just as an employer would, having seen his application materials, but not knowing him and not knowing his weaknesses and his strengths based on how he was going to interview. And so that gave the client a really helpful perspective. And he cited that as something that helped him feeling confident going into job interviews, having not interviewed for jobs in 27 years. So we have figured out ways like that we can draw on our strengths, and that having two of us really can help clients. And then it just means that we've had to figure out the backstage pieces of working together. But I'm going to say that it's not like having a normal business partner where you can, go to your corners at the end of a long week on Friday and come back on Monday, right? On Friday night, usually we're going out to dinner with friends, but it definitely gives you a new respect for your partner and you learn a lot from each other.
I'm going to go ahead and ignore the fact that I think she just called me not normal and say that one of the biggest benefits is, like in any business, with two partners, we both bring very different kind of backgrounds, tool sets, and experiences to what we do. So there's an ability to lean on the other person, particularly with my clients who are attorneys or Amy's clients who aren't in necessarily the law field. So
I love it. And I love the story that you were sharing, Amy, about that client. In fact, I want to let that be our segue because I have a lot more questions around that. I find that, and I'm sure this is with all professions, but I find that with attorneys, when they know that they want to do something different, but they're not sure what that is. One of the biggest things that gets in their way, well, I see two things, but one is like it's as if they're having an identity crisis. So some people are interested in the concept of leaving law or leaving big law, but they identify with that particular career or license or whatever else. So it's like they have this existential crisis. And then the second is they've bought into this story that other options are not available to them. So I'm just curious, do you agree with that? Do you guys see that? How do you deal with that when people come to you?
So I actually do mostly career transitions clients on the one-on-one coaching side. And I have to say that what you just described is almost to a T exactly what everyone comes into a career transition with. There are always reasons why you can't do it. And the first thing I tend to tell people is you had great success. You went to law school. You started at a firm. You maybe became partner at a firm. You did whatever you did in your career. Those are not easy things to do. You had great success. And why would you think you couldn't do that again? You didn't end your success at your last job and decide that you have no more ability. And so I think it's opening the possibilities to realizing what it is you can actually accomplish and do if you put your mind to it, and figuring out your why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to do it? And what do you want to do? So those very early steps are something that, whether you're an engineer, I have clients that are engineers, I have clients that are physicians, they've invested an incredible amount of time and money and energy into creating a career that at some point they decide this isn't really matching what I want to do with my life anymore. And that block is typically, well, I can't do anything else because I've done this. And so that's the first hurdle to get over in a career transition. And it is just realizing, you had these fantastic successes in the past. Why wouldn't you be able to replicate that? Of course you can.
I would just add that it's also about the toolbox of skills. So lawyers in particular, I think often downgrade or don't give enough credit to themselves for the skills that they've developed and how those can apply in other areas. So a lot of what we end up doing as coaches is helping clients to see the possibilities. I was on a panel a few years ago with a woman who'd been a partner at Gardner and then became executive director of the Legal Assistance Foundation, a huge nonprofit in Chicago providing direct legal services. And she said on the panel, the problem with big firms and a lot of these big law jobs is you don't have time to tear up your bed sheet and make a rope to escape. And I think that that's really true with so many professions, but particularly with lawyers, where you put your head down, you do good work, and then you have no time to stop and think. And so part of what we do in coaching is help people create the space to stop and reflect and think about what they might want. And
I think, not to interrupt, but I think that that's one of the benefits of coaching and masterminds, when you just deliberately set aside time that you are going to focus on that issue, on what you want. And maybe more than any other thing, that's one of the biggest benefits of doing those types of things for yourself. And as a society, I think we don't do that. Once you are in your career, you're in your career. So you're no longer training for, your degree or whatever the case may be. You're in your career, and creating that time is really important.
And I do think, so this happened to me, and I have a client right now I'm working with. She knows who she is. She's probably listening, where she is dealing with this right now as well, where you're wanting to make this change, and you're making the change scares the heck out of a lot of people. Family, friends, colleagues, coworkers, because they're not stopping to question, am I still in a place where I want to be? So when you start to do it, it creates some insecurities for them. And for others who see you with that identity, they may push back. So, I agree. Like when you're in coaching, when you're in masterminds, it's a safe place to explore with people who have perspective, that have like zero, they're not trying to convince you to do something because of themselves. Others will project on you all day long. And if you don't give yourself that space to have a neutral perspective, as well as others who, just they aren't as close to it and as close to you, it's really hard to make good, confident decisions.
Absolutely. And I was in a leadership program a few years ago where one of the person who put it together, he always talked about going to the balcony and how, when we got together as this cohort to work on our leadership skills, we were going to the balcony and getting a break from being on stage or doing the backstage work that was required for us to be able to be on stage in our respective roles and getting some perspective. And I think that that's really valuable. And when you get that perspective with people who just want to see you succeed and move beyond what you thought was possible, it makes you so much more effective, so much faster than if you try to go it alone or go it with people who have known you forever and have pretty clear views on where they think you should be going.
Yes. Yes. And so let's also talk about career trajectories, right? So it's not just transitions. I think this shows up with trajectories as well. Let's say you're like, this is what I want to do. Like, I'm actually really excited about the career I'm in, but I want to make sure I'm doing the right things. I want to make sure that I'm setting myself up to get the positions and the promotions, that I want, especially if it's in a law firm. In that same way, I still think oftentimes it's this identity and these stories and being so close to it that we fail to see the big picture and perspective. Can you share kind of like what are the most common things that come up that you see getting in people's way when it comes to, climbing the corporate ladder?
Sure. So I think I am always saying over and over again that the line, to a worm in horseradish, the world is horseradish. And I think we get so into our careers that we don't stop and put our head up and see what's going on in the world around us. And we can lose perspective, both about what we should be doing, but also, the big picture of our careers. Another thing that I often find myself thinking about is how often attorneys and other professionals, they've put their heads down, they did a great job to get where they are, but that's not enough to get them to the next step. You can't just slide along without making any clear decisions and assume that you will end up where you want to be. I mean, you have to stop sliding, you have to start deciding and doing the things that you need to, because otherwise you just stagnate at some point. The good work alone is just not enough. And so we work with individual clients or with mastermind clients. We help them figure out, first of all, what they want, because that's most important. Does no good to make partner or make the management committee if that's not what you really want. And then we help them figure out what's necessary to get there. And we all have blind spots and things we need to work on. And having someone who can help you with that can really accelerate your progress and your growth. You can go and read a book on a topic, but when you have somebody coaching you one-on-one, you're going to get a lot more done in an hour than if you spent your Saturday reading a book on a particular topic.
I think the other thing about that is that because of that closeness to your scenario, to your life, you end up slowing down. Everything when you talk about career trajectory, your trajectory slows down because you don't have that distance and you don't realize that you can go much farther, much faster than you're seeing from, the pilot seat of where you are right now. And I think that's really important to realize that you can get more done if you give yourself that space to do it. And not only in your career trajectory, but if you open up time for, your avocational areas of your life as well and become a little more rounded out as far as how you approach that, you can actually become a much more efficient and effective person in your career.
That's a good point. I have a career coaching client who we were getting ready for an interview, and I said, so, tell me about your hobbies, when I was in the role of interviewer. And she said, I don't have any. So I assigned her that weekend to go do something fun that she used to enjoy doing. And I told her it'll help you in the interview if they ask, but it'll also just help you going into the interview being a happier person. And I think sometimes it takes someone saying, why are you doing this if you're not happy outside work? You have to have some balance in your life, and it makes you more effective and it makes it all worthwhile.
So I always tell people you can't be a passive participant in your career. And they're like, I'm not passive. I work all the time. I'm doing good work. My head's down. And I'm like, that's passive. Like you're being a zombie. You have to step back and be strategic. Exactly what you guys said. One, about what you want and then how you're going to get there, because no one is focused on your career as much as you are. So I love this. All right. So I'm watching the time. Let's talk about what the two masterminds look like that you're going to be leading in 2020.
Okay, I always get in trouble because there's behind the scenes here, you would see a fight over who gets to answer questions first. Really, nothing's been written down yet, but there's definitely like hand waving and things like that. So this one I'm jumping in on because it's really exciting. Amy always criticizes me for using the word incredible too much. But I'm going to use the word
completely true.
But I'm going to use the word incredible because we've participated in so many masterminds and run masterminds and been around that kind of realm. And yet you still talk to so many people who are like, well, it's a mastermind. But it is incredible the amount of progress people can make when they're in masterminds. I've benefited from it. I've watched it. And it is all about the group of people that we put together. So we're doing masterminds called Future in Focus 2020. And I will let Amy talk about the two cohorts that probably apply to your listeners best. Go ahead.
Sure. So there's two cohorts. One is focused on attorneys who want to make a change. And that might be you have no idea what you want that change to be. That might be you have a vague sense but don't know how to get there. And it might be that you want to do something different within law, or you might want to do something outside law. But the whole premise is you want to make a change from where you are now. And we'll work with you on what options are. So part of it is going to be that you'll have calls with people who are doing different things with their law degrees and that skill set that you've developed as an attorney. And then part of it will be really focused on what you want and then the tactics to help you get there. The second group is focused on making partner, and that's for people who are close to consideration for a partner or who just made partner and don't know what to do now. We regularly get calls from people who say, I just walked out of a meeting and they told me I'm about to make partner and I don't know what that means or what to do. So the idea is okay, let's get you dialed in so that you can be successful in that role if that's what you want. And so we'll focus on the things that you need to do at any law firm in order to make partner, as well as specifically at your firm or organization, what you need to do to advance. And there are different elements of the two groups. And I don't know if you want me to go into that now or...
Yeah.
So the first one is support and accountability. So both groups will start off their 6 months together with an in-person retreat the weekend of January 24th to 26th in Nashville, which we're super excited about.
Yay.
And yay, we'll get to know each other Friday evening. And before we wrap up Sunday morning, you'll have gotten to know your cohort and the other attorney cohort and already started learning with and from each other. And then there'll be a weekly mechanism for you to share your 3 most important goals for the week and then check in, report back to your cohort about how you've done. And the idea is you'll get encouragement, suggestions, and accountability from the coaches and from your cohort. And then monthly calls to help you keep going with your momentum. And those will be in the second week of the month. There's also coaching. So each person has 2 individual 30-minute coaching calls each month that scheduled at their convenience. And then the group momentum video call I mentioned with substantive content on that month's topic, as well as coaching and checking in with each other in that call. And then additional calls with people who are doing things that are related to areas where group members are struggling. So for example, for the group focused on how to make partner, we'll have a call with GCs talking about what they're looking at when they're deciding who to hire. For the group focused on career changes, we'll have a call with a recruiter on how to work with a recruiter successfully and things like that. And one of those expert calls will be with the incomparable Heather Hubbard talking about business development. Yes, so we're very excited about that. And the content is, as I mentioned, it's different for each of the cohorts, but because we know that things change and there's going to be overlap depending on where you are and where you want to go, you are able to benefit from the material for both groups. So it's sort of 2 masterminds for the price of 1. that you'll be able to benefit from the material for both groups. And it's all about making it customized. And we have a friend who refers to all of our offerings as bespoke. And I think that that's about right for these masterminds, that it's very much making sure that each person participating has the experience and gets the information and support and accountability that they need so that they can do a great in 2020. And then one final element is at the end of 6 months, you're not just set loose into the wild. There will be a third quarter call and a fourth quarter call with your group, a sort of a reunion to enable you to recharge your motivation, check in, and get support.
So to just give the 50,000 foot view on that, there's content, coaching, support and accountability, and customization. And that tied with the fact that these are small groups, so there's not a huge ability to get lost in this. There's 8 to 10 people per cohort, and that all tied together is what creates the incredible experience. And curating and making sure that those groups fit well together is a crucial component to it. But again, having watched what mastermind groups are capable of doing for our clients as well as for ourselves, the key word here is incredible.
I always say awesome. So it is both awesome and incredible. So you guys, I already shared this a little bit at the beginning in the intro, but I am a huge proponent of masterminds. And so I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to be in just the best hands, and you have that here. So the mastermind I'm doing, it's only for women. So, if you're a man, I'm excluding you. I'm sorry. And it really is for if you're at a high level trying to achieve really big things and you already know what you want, right? So if you're seeking clarity, you don't really qualify. And if you're just trying to progress, which is super important, you're still really not at the level where we're trying to help in the 2020 experience. So if you are already, an income or equity partner, really trying to go, really, really big to the next level, then the 2020 experience is perfect. But if you are seeking clarity, please, please, please apply. You are not going to find a better group to support you. And if you are an associate and you want to make sure that you're set up for partner, or you just became a partner and you want to make sure that, you really are set up for success, please, please, please check this out, because, Amy and Keith really are amazing. I 100% endorse them and know that you're going to have an amazing experience. I definitely will be coming in as one of those guests on business development and may potentially, crash part of the retreat in Nashville.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
So how can people apply if they're interested in being in one of these cohorts?
Sure. So when this podcast drops, futureinfocus2020.com will be live, and you'll be able to sign up for an interest list. And then about a week later, so we're keeping it to an interest list during that week so that people have an opportunity who are listening to this podcast to apply first. And then about a week later, it'll open up generally to the rest of our email list. And a week later after that, it'll open up to the world. So the key there is futureinfocus2020.com. Sign up, get on the interest list, and we'll be sure we take care of you as far as getting you through that application process. I would note that separately, I think Amy brought this up earlier, separately from the 2 attorney cohorts, we are going to have a goal achievement cohort that's going to meet in Chicago as well. That's going to be very much focused on goal achievement. So making a change in 2020 to achieve the things you want to achieve, maybe on a little bit more rubber hits the road kind of approach. So if you are interested in that, you can still go to futureinfocus2020.com and just note that you're interested in goal achievement, and you can get put on that track as well. Certainly good for attorneys or any professionals whatsoever, but that's going to be the key and the timeline here. And
incredible.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah. And I do want to, Heather, you do such a great job explaining and then also curating your groups to make sure that everybody gets along and everyone's a good fit. And I've learned so much from watching you in that process and from being in a mastermind that didn't do that. So these groups, I do want to say we would rather end up with, say, a third group than have the wrong folks together. So Don't worry that if one of your colleagues from down the hall is also applying, you will not end up in the same group unless you want it to be, for example. So
oddly enough, we talked about trips to Cuba and curating travel. That was probably the best experience I've had for curating mastermind groups, is creating groups of folks who are willing to travel together, who don't always like group travel or have no interest in group travel.
Oh my gosh, we could do a whole podcast episode on this.
Oh, I know.
I'm thinking of this from like my trip to Tanzania. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We have groups that still do reunions, 6 years later. And so I think that, that's really a key component, is making sure that the group of people that is together in that mastermind is feeding off of each other and creating kind of that symbiotic relationship of incredibleness.
Yeah, people that you're going to, want to stay in touch with and support and help you grow just as well as much as we will. So.
All right. I see we're out of time. I could talk forever about this. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Guys, it's futureinfocus2020.com, and we will put that link in the show notes as well. Keith and Amy, thank you so much.
No, thank you. This was great. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. I absolutely love Amy and Keith, and they are full of so much wisdom. And so I am super excited to share their opportunity with you. We really created it to support you. So don't forget, also, if you are a solo small firm, that we're doing that webinar for you next Friday, October 18th with Ali Lozano. So lots of awesome opportunities for you. I can't wait to support you in this way. And if you're trying to figure out what makes sense for you, whether it's the 2020 experience, or whether it's one of the opportunities with Keith or Amy, or whether it's the program that you're going to hear about soon with Ali Lozano, just shoot us an email support@heatherjoyhubbard.com. Let us know kind of what's going on, what you're thinking, and we are happy to provide a personalized recommendation for you. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back next week. Now is the time to get your application in for the 2020 Mastermind experience. If you are an ambitious woman ready to make 2020 the year where everything changes, the year where you put yourself first, where you tackle your excuses and your fears so that you can begin to create the life and career that you truly want, you want to check out this program. It was created for you. Our rooming list is due to Miraval on November 4th. That means you need to get your application in now so that you can be considered for a seat on this rocket ship. You can learn more and apply at 2020mastermindexperience.com.